The silent invasion. The stars had always whispered to humanity. For centuries, we pointed our telescopes and radio arrays to the heavens, desperate for any sign that we weren't alone. The silence persisted until 2087, when the Arecibo Io Observatory detected an unmistakable pattern emanating from the Ta-CD system. After centuries of cosmic silence, someone had finally answered. Commander Ileana Wright stood on the observation deck of the International Space Station Artemis, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath her. At 42, she had spent more than half her life in space, commanding research missions and helping establish the lunar colonies. Her dark hair, streaked with premature silver, floated in the station's microgravity. The message alerting her to return to Earth had been cryptic, but came directly from the United Earth Defense Council. "Commander, your shuttle is prepped for departure," Lieutenant Cato informed her, his voice tight with the same tension that had gripped the station for days. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Any updates from Geneva?" "Nothing official, but rumors are spreading. Something about the signal from Ta-CD. It's changed." Wright nodded, her expression revealing nothing. She had seen the encrypted data packets herself. The alien transmission had begun as mathematical sequences, universal constants, and simple communications, friendly and inviting. Then, 3 days ago, the tone shifted. The new transmissions contained detailed schematics of Earth's defense systems, military installations, and infrastructure vulnerabilities. Somehow, they had been watching us far more closely than we had been watching them. When Wright arrived at the Geneva complex, the situation had deteriorated. Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth's leading xenolinguist and the first to decode the alien communications, met her at the landing pad. His usually meticulous appearance had given way to disheveled clothes and bloodshot eyes. "They're already here, Ileana," he said without preamble. "The Vexari, that's what they call themselves. They've been infiltrating for months." In the underground command center, General Hassan displayed satellite imagery of anomalous energy signatures in major cities across the globe. They established beachheads in 27 locations before we even realized what was happening. Hassan explained, pointing to red markers spreading like a virus across the holographic globe. "Stealth technology beyond anything we've developed." "How did they get past our early warning systems?" Wright asked, studying the tactical display. "They didn't need to," Chen replied. "The friendly transmissions were a smokescreen. While we were busy decoding their mathematical pleasantries, they were mapping our defenses and deploying advanced teams through microscopic wormholes." Wright felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "Microscopic wormholes." Hassan nodded grimly. "Temporary spatial bridges, barely detectable. They sent through what we're calling seeders, nanoscale constructors that assembled their soldiers and equipment using local materials. By the time we detected them, they had fully operational bases. The images shifted to show strange crystalline structures growing from the ruins of Rio de Janeiro. The city had gone dark 3 days earlier. All communications ceased. Similar scenes played out in Seoul, Lagos, and Cairo. "What do they want?" Wright asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Resources," Chen said. "Specifically, water with high deuterium concentrations and rare earth minerals. But there's something else." He hesitated. "They're also harvesting biological samples, human specimens. They're studying us," Wright concluded, "assessing whether we're a threat, or cataloging us as a resource," Hassan added darkly. Within weeks, the Vexari had established control over 30% of Earth's surface. Their technology was centuries beyond humanity's most advanced systems. Conventional weapons proved ineffective against their energy shields. Nuclear options were considered but ultimately rejected. The Vexari bases were too integrated with population centers. Yet amid the escalating crisis, Commander Wright discovered something crucial. While monitoring Vexari communications from a hidden outpost in the Rocky Mountains, she identified fluctuations in their defensive systems when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. It's like their shield technology has a harmonic resonance vulnerability. She explained to the hastily assembled Resistance Council. If we can generate the right frequency pattern, we might be able to disrupt their defenses temporarily. Dr. Chen, who had been analyzing recovered Vexeri technology, built on Wright's discovery. Their systems operate on principles that seemingly violate our understanding of physics. But there's a pattern here, a mathematical consistency that suggests their technology has fundamental limitations we can exploit. As major cities fell and the Vexari established processing centers to extract Earth's resources, humanity retreated to hidden facilities around the globe. The Resistance, led by the unlikely partnership of Commander Wright's tactical expertise and Dr. Chen's scientific brilliance, began to formulate a plan that would later be known simply as Operation Prometheus. In a repurposed mining facility beneath the Antarctic ice, Wright watched as engineers reverse-engineered salvaged Vexeri technology. Chen had made the breakthrough they needed, developing what he called the Nexus Drive, a propulsion system that could create controlled spatial distortions similar to the Vexeri's wormhole technology. We don't need to match their technological development curve, Wright told the assembled engineers and scientists. We just need to adapt what we've learned about their systems and apply it in ways they won't expect. They think systematically, predictably. We need to be the opposite. 6 months after the initial invasion, humanity had lost control of 60% of Earth's surface. Millions had perished or been captured. Those who remained free had gone underground, literally and figuratively. But something the Vexeri never anticipated was beginning to take shape in hidden shipyards around the world, a fleet unlike anything Earth had ever produced. They expect us to surrender or die fighting with conventional weapons, Wright said, addressing the pilots who would soon command humanity's last hope. What they don't expect is for us to adapt their own technology and use it against them. And that's exactly what we're going to do. As the first prototype vessel, codenamed Defiance, prepared for its maiden flight, Wright stood before the gathered resistance leaders. The Vexeri believed they found a helpless world to harvest. They're about to discover they've awakened something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Operation Prometheus. The prototype vessel Defiance hung suspended in the cavernous underground hangar, its hull a patchwork of terrestrial alloys and reverse-engineered Vexeri technology. Unlike the sleek, crystalline designs of the alien invaders, human ships embraced a brutalist aesthetic, functional, intimidating, and distinctly terrestrial despite their advanced capabilities. Captain Maya Santos ran her hand along the ship's outer plating, feeling the seamless integration of disparate technologies. At 35, she had been one of Earth's most accomplished test pilots before the invasion. Now she would command humanity's first true starship. She's beautiful, isn't she? Dr. Chen approached, carrying a datapad displaying the final system diagnostics. Ugly as sin by conventional standards, but beautiful in what she represents. Will it work, Marcus? Santos asked, her voice low to avoid being overheard by the technicians making final preparations nearby. Really work, I mean. Chen's normally cautious demeanor gave way to a rare smile. The Nexus Drive exceeds all our projections. In simulations, we've achieved spatial folding capabilities that actually surpass what we've observed from the Vexeri fleet. They've been using this technology for so long, they've become orthodox in their applications. And we're the heretics, Santos finished his thought. Precisely. They've had centuries to refine their approach, but that's created blind spots. They don't innovate because they haven't needed to. We've had 6 months and extinction breathing down our necks. Commander Wright joined them, accompanied by General Hassan and representatives from the remaining free nations. The gathered leaders fell silent as Wright activated the central holographic display, showing the current state of Earth's occupation. The Vexeri now controls 68% of Earth's surface, Wright began without preamble. Their resource extraction has accelerated in the past month. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for a final push to secure the remaining free territories. She gestured, and the display shifted to show the locations of 12 hidden shipyards around the world. Operation Prometheus is now fully operational. We have 37 vessels equipped with functioning Nexus drives, with another 18 in final assembly. This gives us a narrow window to strike before the Vexari realize what we've developed. "What exactly is our strategy?" asked the Chinese representative, Admiral Zhou. "Even with these ships, we're outnumbered 10 to 1. Wright nodded to Dr. Chen, who stepped forward. "The Vexari rely on a hierarchical command structure. Their ground forces and orbital platforms receive continuous instructions from 7 primary control ships in high Earth orbit. Our analysis of their communications suggests these control ships are essential to coordinating their worldwide operations." He manipulated the display to highlight the Vexari command vessels. "If we can disable or destroy these ships simultaneously, their ground forces will be thrown into disarray. The Nexus drive gives us the ability to execute precisely coordinated strikes from multiple vectors, something their defensive algorithms aren't designed to counter." Training for Operation Prometheus had been brutal and unforgiving. The Nexus drive's spatial folding capabilities violated every instinct developed by conventional pilots. When activated, the drive didn't simply move a ship from point A to point B. It folded space itself, creating temporary overlaps that allowed vessels to exist in multiple locations simultaneously before resolving to a final position. In the simulator, Captain Santos watched as another pilot suffered catastrophic failure, their virtual ship tearing itself apart as they attempted a complex folding maneuver. "Again," Santos ordered, resetting the simulation. "Lieutenant Park, you're overcompensating during the fold transition. The ship doesn't need to be steered through the fold. You need to visualize the exit point and let the ship's systems resolve the spatial mathematics." "It's not intuitive," Park protested, sweat beading on her forehead despite the climate-controlled environment. "Nothing about this is intuitive," Santos agreed. "We're asking human brains to process 4-dimensional movement, but the Nexus systems can handle the calculations if we provide the intent. Stop thinking like a pilot and start thinking like a quantum particle." The training continued relentlessly as the first wave of ships completed their testing phases. Each vessel carried a crew of just 7. Minimal life support meant more power could be diverted to the Nexus drive and weapon systems. The weapons themselves were hybridized, combining conventional kinetic projectiles with electromagnetic disruptors tuned to the specific vulnerabilities Wright had discovered in Vexari shields. 3 weeks before the planned offensive, the Vexari discovered one of the smaller shipyards hidden in the Ural Mountains. The response was immediate and overwhelming. A full battalion of Vexari harvesters descended on the facility, capturing or killing everyone inside. Among the losses was the Horizon, the 3rd prototype vessel, and its entire crew. In the aftermath, security protocols were tightened and the launch timeline accelerated. Commander Wright addressed the assembled fleet commanders from the bridge of the Defiance. "The Vexari now know we're developing advanced technology. What they don't yet realize is the scale of our response or the capabilities we've achieved. This actually works to our advantage. They'll be expecting prototypes, experimental craft with limited functionality. They won't be prepared for a coordinated attack from a fully operational fleet." Captain Santos reviewed the assault plan with her crew aboard the Defiance. Their target was the primary Vexari command ship positioned over what had once been North America. The plan called for 3 vessels to execute a synchronized spatial fold, appearing at predetermined coordinates around the command ship's defensive perimeter. "We'll have approximately 12 seconds before their adaptive shields reconfigure to counter our presence," Santos explained. "During that window, all vessels will deploy electromagnetic pulse weapons followed immediately by kinetic penetrators." First Lieutenant Elisa Park, who had finally mastered the complexities of Nexus navigation, studied the tactical display. "And if we don't breach their defenses in that 12-second window, then we fold out and try again from different vectors," Santos replied. "We can execute spatial jumps faster than they can track or target us. We keep hitting them until something breaks." The night before the launch, Dr. Chen made a final modification to the Defiance's Nexus drive. When Wright questioned the last-minute change, Chen's expression was both exhausted and exhilarated. "I've been analyzing the data from our test flights and comparing it with what we know about Vexeri spatial mechanics. There's a pattern in how they configure their defensive fields, a mathematical constant that appears in all their shield harmonics." And, Wright prompted, sensing the breakthrough, "And I think we can use the Nexus drive to create a destructive interference pattern. Instead of just bypassing their shields, we might be able to collapse them entirely." As dawn broke over the hidden Antarctic base, the first wave of humanity's fleet prepared for launch. Commander Wright stood on the Defiance's bridge, watching as Captain Santos ran through the pre-launch sequence. Around the world, in deep ocean trenches, hidden mountain valleys, and repurposed mine shafts, 36 other vessels did the same. "All ships report ready, Commander," Santos announced, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to attempt. Wright took a moment to consider the journey that had brought them here. From a species reaching hopefully toward the stars to one fighting desperately for survival. Now, they were about to take that fight beyond Earth for the first time. "Begin Operation Prometheus," she ordered, and humanity's first battle fleet rose to challenge the stars. The reckoning. The Vexeri never saw them coming. 37 human vessels executed perfectly synchronized spatial folds, materializing within striking distance of their targets. The Defiance, under Captain Santos' command, led the assault on the primary command ship, a massive crystalline structure that gleamed like a malevolent star in high Earth orbit. "All weapons hot," Santos ordered as reality reasserted itself around them. "Target their command node and fire." The electromagnetic disruptors fired first, sending precisely calibrated pulses cascading across the Vexeri shields. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then, as Dr. Chen had predicted, destructive interference patterns formed within the alien defensive field, creating temporary vulnerabilities. "Kinetic penetrators away," reported Lieutenant Park, her hands dancing across the weapons console. Across the orbital battlefield, the scene repeated as human vessels executed their attacks with precision born of desperate innovation. The Vexeri command ships, caught completely by surprise, attempted to coordinate a response, but their hierarchical command structure became their undoing. With each successful strike against a control node, their coordinated defense degraded further. On the Defiance's bridge, Commander Wright watched the tactical display with tightly controlled emotions as the first Vexeri command ship shattered under sustained fire. Group 2 reports successful neutralization of Target 3, Communications Officer Mendez announced. Group 4 has disabled Target 6, but is taking heavy return fire. Direct Group 7 to provide support to 4, Wright ordered. All other groups maintain primary targeting priorities. Dr. Chen monitored the Nexus drive's performance, making real-time adjustments as the battle progressed. "They're adapting their shield harmonics," he warned. "The interference pattern won't be as effective on subsequent attacks." "Then we change tactics," Santos responded immediately. "All ships initiate Protocol Hydra." Protocol Hydra had been developed as a contingency for exactly this scenario. Instead of direct assaults, the human vessels began executing rapid, sequential spatial folds, appearing at random coordinates around their targets for mere seconds, just long enough to fire, before folding away again. The Vexeri targeting systems, designed to track conventional spacecraft, proved inadequate against opponents that effectively existed in multiple places simultaneously. 3 hours into the battle, 6 of the 7 Vexeri command ships had been destroyed or disabled. The effect on their ground forces was immediate and dramatic. Across Earth, the previously coordinated occupation forces fell into disarray. Some units continued their programmed operations, while others entered defensive postures or attempted to establish independent command hierarchies. The resistance forces on the ground, coordinated by General Hassan, launched simultaneous uprisings in major population centers. Years of guerrilla warfare against a technologically superior enemy had taught humanity painful but valuable lessons in asymmetric combat. Aboard the seventh and final Vexuri command ship, First Overseer Zalteth watched in disbelief as the tactical displays showed the systematic destruction of their command network. In the thousands of worlds the Vexuri had conquered, none had ever mounted such an effective counteroffensive, especially not after their defenses and infrastructure had been so thoroughly compromised. Impossible, Zalteth hissed, its crystalline appendages clicking in agitation. These primitives were metallurgically pre-adaptive when we arrived. They couldn't possibly have developed full technology. Evidence suggests they reverse-engineered our systems, reported Second Overseer Vendrak. But they've implemented applications we never considered. Their approach is chaotic, unpredictable. Before Zalteth could respond, alarms blared throughout the command deck as 3 human vessels simultaneously materialized at different points around the ship. This time, instead of immediately attacking, the vessels maintained their positions. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Wright opened a communication channel. "This is Commander Ileana Wright of Earth. You will order all Vexuri forces to cease hostilities and withdraw from our planet immediately." There was a long pause before a response came. The translator struggled to convert the complex harmonic language of the Vexuri into human speech. "You have violated natural order," came Zalteth's reply. "Lesser species do not challenge the Vexuri. Your resistance is unprecedented but ultimately futile. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your primitive fleet cannot stand against our Armada when it arrives." Wright exchanged a glance with Dr. Chen before responding. "We examined the quantum entanglement communicators on your ships. We know you've been isolated from your home system since we disabled your command network. No distress call has been sent. No Armada has been summoned." Another pause, longer this time. When Zalteth spoke again, there was a new tonal quality that the translator interpreted as uncertainty. "What are your terms?" In the days that followed, humanity's unexpected victory sent shockwaves beyond Earth. The Vexuri had not been truthful about their position in the galactic community. Far from being the dominant power they had claimed, they were merely one of dozens of spacefaring civilizations, and not particularly well regarded among them. As Vexuri forces withdrew from Earth under the terms of surrender, representatives from the Galactic Concord made contact. They had been observing the conflict from afar, bound by non-interference protocols that prevented intervention in conflicts between unaffiliated species. Admiral Tethnar of the Concord Diplomatic Corps met with Earth's leadership aboard the orbital station New Dawn, constructed from repurposed Vexuri technology. "Your species has accomplished something unprecedented in recorded history," the Admiral acknowledged, its translucent form shifting colors as it spoke. "No civilization has ever successfully repelled a Vexuri harvesting operation, let alone counterattacked with such effectiveness." "We had strong motivation," Commander Wright replied dryly. "Indeed. More importantly, you have demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for technological adaptation and application. The Nexus drive variants your scientists developed exceed the efficiency of similar technologies used by established Concord members." Dr. Chen, now heading Earth's newly formed Xenotechnology Institute, leaned forward. "You're saying our version of the technology is better than what's currently in use?" "Not merely better, revolutionary," Tethnar confirmed. "Your approach to spatial manipulation introduces concepts that our theorists had considered but never successfully implemented. There is considerable interest in establishing technological exchange programs." The implications were clear. Humanity, despite being the newest and least developed spacefaring species, had just become extraordinarily valuable to the galactic community. What the Vexuri had intended as a routine harvesting operation had instead introduced a dangerous new player to the interstellar stage. 1 year after the liberation of Earth, humanity's influence had expanded far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The reverse-engineered Vexuri technology, combined with human innovation, had accelerated technological development by centuries. Earth now maintained a defense fleet of over 200 vessels, each incorporating improvements on the original Nexus drive design. Captain Santos, now Admiral Santos, commanded Earth's first deep space exploration vessel, the Prometheus. As they prepared for their maiden voyage to the Ta-Ceti system, ironically, the source of the original Vexeri transmissions, she reflected on how quickly everything had changed. "We went from fighting for survival to exploring the stars in less than 2 years," she remarked to Wright, who had come aboard to see them off. "The Concorde representatives still can't quite believe how quickly we've adapted their technologies," Wright replied. "Apparently, most species take decades to integrate new concepts. They've never seen anything like our rate of innovation. They should have left us alone," Santos said simply. When the Prometheus departed Earth orbit, using a Nexus fold to cross 10 light-years in an instant, the message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity had arrived on the interstellar stage, not as supplicants or refugees, but as equals, perhaps even as leaders in the next wave of technological development. In the Galactic Concorde's central registry, Earth's classification was quietly updated from developing pre-adaptive species to emergent technological innovator, priority diplomatic status. A notation was added to the file, visible only to the highest levels of Concorde leadership. "Approach with caution. Territorial aggression triggers unprecedented technological advancement." The stars had always whispered to humanity. Now, humanity was answering, and the universe was listening with newfound respect and more than a little apprehension. The species that had been targeted for harvesting had instead become the harbinger of a new era in galactic development, proving that sometimes the most dangerous force in the universe is a species fighting for its survival. As Admiral Teth-Nar reported to the Concorde Council, they were pushed to the brink of extinction, and instead of falling, they soared. "I cannot predict what they will become in a century, but I know this: when humanity's fleet arrived in force, the universe had no choice but to bow in acknowledgement."